Great to have you on board. Excited to chat. Really appreciate you making the time for us on a busy weekday. So, that being said, why don't we just dive right in?
Sure, yeah, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. I'm really excited to have a speak with you guys today.
Amazing. Yeah, a little bit different to your normal kind of conversations and content online. So I guess like all of our interactions with any of our podcast guests, we always start with just asking for like a little bit of background about kind of what got you going, where you grew up, what life is like really as a kid, as an adolescent, what you were like, what you were into. Give us that whole kind of backstory if you could.
Yeah, sure. So I grew up in London. I've lived here pretty much my entire life. I've moved throughout London as a kid, but pretty much where I am now is where I've been for the past 15 years. So, went to school here, went to university, probably like 30 minutes away from where I live now as well. So, pretty much been in London my entire life. And in terms of, I guess, my jobs and stuff, I've worked so many different jobs. I talk about that on the channel as well, right? I say, when you're coming up, nobody's too good for a job. You've got to try and, work your way up no
Yeah.
matter what sector you're in. So I've done so many different things before becoming a creator, but I kind of always knew that I wanted to do something creative. I've always been pretty confident, speaking to people on camera as well. And when I got into crypto, I just thought, you know what, my friends don't want to hear me talk about crypto. My family don't want to hear me talk about crypto. Let me talk to people that actually care about crypto. So that's kind of like why I started the channel in the beginning, and just fell in love with it from there.
Absolutely brilliant. No, I mean what you've shared, I can feel and sense you're such a natural communicator. You said to yourself, I need an outlet for this because the friends and family are going to cut me
Yeah,
off. I hear you. Absolutely
yeah.
brilliant. So bring us back to that first time you remember hearing about crypto, Bitcoin. Like, what was your first interaction, if you can recall it?
Oh, it's like clear as day for me. So when I first got into investing, well, let's just say like this time, probably about 10 years ago ish, I was the worst with money, right? I'm 30 now. Back in my early 20s, I was so bad with money. I didn't really appreciate the value of a pound or a dollar, depending where you're watching this. And one of my friends actually said to me, you know what, Lamar, we need to start investing. We need to, do more with our money. And we started in the stock market actually. Real degen stuff in the beginning. You can imagine as a 20-year-old, we're investing in, I think it was SPACs at the time, investing in degenerate companies, hoping to get like 100x from stocks.
Yeah.
And the company that I was working at the time, I worked at this chiropractic clinic, and one of the patients came in and he said to me, he's like, Lamar, I heard you're getting into investing. This is probably about 2019 at the time. I heard you're getting into stock market, forget stocks, crypto's the next thing. And I looked at him and I said, crypto? That sounds like a scam.
Yeah.
The name of that even sounds like a
Yeah.
scam. He was like, no, I'm telling you, you need to buy this thing called Ethereum. I was like, I have no idea what Ethereum was. At the time, I thought it was like a precious metal
Yeah.
by the name of it.
Yeah.
So he was like, it's 200. It sounds like it's a lot, but I promise you it's not a lot. I was like, all right, I'll go have a look at home. Didn't really understand how to use Binance, never heard of that before. And there weren't really many exchanges around at that time. Like now we've got so many different ones. Um, so yeah, went home, had a look at Ethereum, saw it for 200. I think I bought like $50 worth of it at the time, and I was like, oh, this is a little bit risky.
Really.
And yeah, I just saw it. I saw it start to grow like pretty quickly. I got in just at the, what was it, the previous C word dump, the pandemic.
Yeah.
And at that time as well, I remember my boss said to me, he was really into business as well, and he said in these times that's when you start to put money into the market.
Yeah.
Again, at that time, I was really new to investing, so I had no idea what he meant by that. Now obviously we can look at these times and we can say, wow, it was a massive opportunity. But he kind of pushed me to buy into something as well. And then we sort of caught the start of the 2020 run. And I didn't really put a crazy amount of money in then. Back then I didn't really have that much money. Growing up with my family, single parent household, we didn't really have much money, to be honest. So yeah, put in a little bit what I kind of could afford to lose, and then just became addicted to kind of like learning about it.
Yeah.
Right. It was something completely new, something I thought was interesting. The more that I learned about it, I was like, wow, maybe this is kind of what could be the future for money, for protecting your wealth. And it just, something just clicked with me, made sense. And then me and one of my best friends that I worked with, you know, we really got into it. And after work every day, we'd go home and we'd just research crypto for, I mean, hours on hours. And at that time, I was just like so bright-eyed to it. I thought I can't get enough of this. I need to learn more about it. And that's kind of like what led me on to where I am now, really.
Absolutely brilliant. I love the kind of, I mean, you had a community from day one, really. You did this with your pal from the chiropractic company. And I suppose also really good to hear, you know, you're part of, like, I suppose your motivation in a way, you know, it sounds like, you know, obviously, you know, your mom was doing a massive job raising you, and therefore you decided to put the foot to the floor in terms of really putting that effort in for the learning side of things. So I may have missed it, but when you delved into the stocks, you weren't making content obviously at that stage. It was just you and your buddy at night learning, like digesting,
Yeah.
looking for bogey stocks that were going to go 1,000x. Makes sense. And then you kind of leaned into the crypto stuff. So that, I guess, brings you up to like 2021, 2022. Was that around the stage where you started? When did you even start contemplating, you know what, I know enough about this to maybe start talking about it?
You know what? It was when, so I used to consume a lot of YouTube, a lot of crypto YouTube, as well as just reading up on stuff. And it got to the point where I could kind of like weed out people who knew what they were talking about from people who didn't. And it was when I started to see there were people that kind of were just talking a load of nonsense at that time.
Yeah.
They had a massive following. I thought, you know, I feel like I could do a better job for people. You know, I'm really passionate about this. Also, I kind of wanted to help people, I guess, like myself, that wanted to progress,
Yeah.
to start that journey as well, right? I've always been really ambitious. I always thought, you know, I'm going to do something for myself, be my own boss. Didn't really know what it was going to be. Didn't know the work that it was going to take to put to put into that, to be honest. But you know, I kind of thought that I could do a pretty good job at educating people in crypto. So it was probably like 2021 was when I made my first video. I mean, I look back at them now and I cringe, but it was, yeah, 2021, 2022. I got into it. I think it was when Bitcoin had already bottomed and it was like 20K.
Yeah.
So we'd been through the whole cycle, bear market, and then starting into a new cycle, was when I made my first video.
Oh, very brave of you. And at that time, you were still obviously working full time in the clinic, presumably, or something along those.
Well, do you know what? We actually, because we've done so much work behind the scenes, my friend who I was learning with, he knew someone who knew someone who was working for a startup crypto company. So he said, "Oh, me and my buddy are, you know, really into crypto right now. I think we could help." And these were like uh business people, had no idea about community, no idea like how to drive community growth, all that sort of
Yeah.
stuff. So we jumped on in that crypto startup
Amazing.
in 2021, like right at the beginning of 2021. So all throughout the bear market and then leading into the start of the bull market, I was actually working on a crypto gaming project, a new coin as well. And I think I worked on maybe like 4 projects in the space of 2 years, building the community, trying to drive sales as well for the release of the coin.
Amazing.
So, you know, I went from the chiropractor, then went all in crypto. You know, it was a contract job. But I just said to myself, you know what, I really want to try and make something from crypto. And it
Yeah.
was from probably being at that job for about a year. After that was when I was like, you know what, I can do this. I can do content as well. So yeah, I've probably been all in crypto from before I started the channel, really.
Yeah, that's absolutely amazing. That's super inspirational, I have to say, Lamar. Like, it's very rare I've come across anybody in the crypto space as a creator who's kind of worked a genuine 9 to 5 as such. I mean, I'm sure it was much more than 9 to 5, but you know, you
Yeah.
were in the mix in a fast-paced startup. I have to commend your bravery going from, you know, much more traditional, somewhat safety of the chiropractic stuff, chiropractic world,
Mhm.
like, you know, fully fledged into crypto. Given, would I be right in saying you and your buddy at that stage really only had like a year of exposure or less even?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we had no exposure, but the way that we look at it, the way that I look at it now, you know, no disrespect to people who work 9 to 5s, but I feel more safe knowing that my future's in my hands and it's based on the work that I put in, rather than I have to now work for someone else's company, a 9 to 5, get a fixed wage, maybe a 5%
Yeah.
bonus every 5 years. That to me is not safe at all.
Yeah.
So when I started like understanding money a bit more, you know, my boss at the chiropractor, bless him, he would make us do training on how to become a better business person, how to invest your money. And at that time, you know, we we had no business really learning about that stuff, but
Yeah.
it definitely helped me and my friend kind of like open our minds a little bit more. But yeah, you know, it was not much experience in crypto at the time, but then
Yeah.
to go all in on crypto for the space of a few years kind of
Incredible.
like accelerated that process like a lot quicker
Yeah.
than it would have.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm fascinated to learn, like, when you joined that company, you know, the other employees in the startup, was it
Mm.
was everybody like consumed by crypto internally? I mean, from a, obviously, I don't mean your actual work in the startup, but from a sideline point of view, was it all everybody spoke about, or was it kind of diverse?
You know what? Not really, because we had quite a diverse team, diverse in terms of like male and females, and then age as well. So I think all of the younger guys that were working there, we were really obsessed with it. Some of
Yeah.
the older people, it was their job. They were maybe, you know, doing stuff that had nothing to do with um you know, the marketing or community and stuff like that. They were kind of like behind the scenes things, so they were like purely operational, didn't really care that much.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I think me and my buddy, when we found a few of the guys that were working there that had that same passion as us, you know, that kind of pushed us on. And you know, we're trying to spill that into the people that didn't really care that much about crypto. It's
Yeah.
funny because some of the people working there, they would say, oh, you know, what crypto should we buy? You know, I'm going to buy this. And then that was the end of the conversation. They didn't really care what it was, why they were buying it, what the
Yeah.
plan was. It was just like, I'm going to buy this and then forget about it. So
Yeah.
it was a bit of a mix, to be honest, at the company. Yeah.
Still amazing though. I mean, like, there's, from a point of view of like 2020, 2021, you could, I mean, there's not that many people who were working in the UK who were actually in a crypto company. Like, it's actually pretty cool to have done it. Like, and as you
Yeah.
said, fast tracked your growth. And I suppose, would it be right to say that it also probably deepened your confidence because you were around it, you knew the industry, you were getting a different exposure than just consuming content on YouTube alone in your, you know, at home kind of thing. You were living and breathing in a crypto ecosystem so early. That was that, I guess, what propelled you to go, you know what, I'm going to take out the camera here, I'm going to go for it.
Yeah. I think, you know, it had a massive impact. And it was the responsibility that was put on us from a very early stage working at that company. You
Cool.
know, we had to go to some conferences like XT Global in Bangkok, I believe it was, you know, having to go there. And it was just me and my buddy from the chiropractor were the only people representing the company. Like, you
Wow.
can pull up pictures and
Yeah.
stuff like that and find us there. And I look back and it's like, we look so young. And, you know, I think the fact that we got pushed into that
Yeah.
was, you know, it definitely propelled us to want to just do more with it. And I think after we did our first conference and stuff like that, speaking, it kind of made me feel a bit more confident on camera. My buddy doesn't really, he's not really into the camera stuff. I think you got to be a certain type of person.
Yeah.
But he now works for a top 100 crypto company as well. So it's like, even if you're not on camera, you know, the fact that we've both been able to progress in crypto from basically nothing is crazy. But yeah, you know, living and breathing it definitely made a big impact on where we both are today.
Absolutely, yeah. It's a fantastic story that, like, two buddies, you know, you've stuck along the journey together, and now you're both deep into the industry. It's amazing. I mean, it's good inspiration for anybody who is listening and learning from you. Insofar as, you know, there's a lot of opportunities in crypto aside from the obvious. Like, there's so much
Mhm.
depth of employment in the crypto space. I mean, most people probably in the UK what would have presumed there wasn't a lot of employment 5-6 years ago, but there certainly is now. There's a ton in the US with institutionalization, with rapid adoption globally, not to mention all of just the ancillary businesses that are building alongside this. So great inspiration in that sense. For your actual, from the content point of view, can you remember what it felt like uploading your first couple of videos? Were you excited? Was it trepidation? Was it kind of?
Yeah, it was an interesting one, to be honest, because when I first started, I didn't show my face. It was just purely chart stuff, and it was like, this is where I think the price is going to go. That's it. Bye. See you later.
Yeah,
It was really nerve-wracking, and I found it really cringe at the beginning. You know, hearing my voice back, having to go and edit the video and listen to my own voice back. You
yeah,
know, it was a tough thing to do in the beginning. Took a lot. It took a lot of time to get used to that. But then at the same time, it was exciting because, you know, when you start to get a bit of traction, um, you know, hearing people's feedback, positive feedback, even negative feedback, just to get feedback,
yeah.
you know, for me felt like, wow, I'm actually starting to, you
This
know,
is great.
put a mark in the industry, really.
Yeah,
And you know, as time's gone on, you know, just developing that, putting my face out there, stuff like that, it's got a lot easier, and I look forward to uploading. Right, I'm actually gonna start uploading some new type of content coming soon as well. I've been telling the
right.
guys about. We've been trying to like give back to people, so you know, doing more like charity based videos, because I think a lot of us get caught up in the numbers on the screen.
Yeah,
And
sure.
I have these conversations with my friends, and you know, sometimes you get really desensitized to what a lot of money is, and
Yeah,
to what a lot of money is to the average person. You know, I'll be honest as well. Sometimes I am a little bit like that, which I'm not proud to say, but you know, I want to go back again to the roots, help people out, and do a bit more fulfilling content as well. So, you know, it's
yeah.
been a whole journey from just charts to expanding out, to be honest.
Being a fully fledged kind of multifaceted creator, absolutely. I
Yeah.
mean, you're such a natural born communicator. I think you could turn your hand to any kind of niche or content and make it work and have a flow. You know, you have such fluidity to your style. It's fantastic. So I guess then, what point was it kind of, I guess, 2024, where you were like, right, this is serious. Like, I'm going to really start putting the foot to the floor here. And were you still in the company at that stage, or what was it? I'm always interested about the crossover point. You know, when did
Yeah.
you start to push back on one and escalate the other?
Yeah. So I really, it was weird because I went from zero at the chiropractor to, you know, working at the startup company, doing really, really well there, maybe not taking things as seriously as I should. And then just a lot of bad things happened in my life, which kind of led me down a pretty, a pretty bad spiral,
Yeah,
relationship wise, family health wise, just not being responsible. And then probably in like the last 3 months of that job, you know, I was in a pretty bad place. And in terms of like money, I didn't have much money saved at that point because I blew it all, you know,
yeah,
spending way beyond my means, spending ridiculous amounts of money. Um, and then yeah, just being irresponsible, to be honest. So, you know, that contract kind of ended abruptly. Maybe like I think it was October of 2023, I believe it was, yeah, 2023. And at that time I was thinking, how am I going to make this work? You know, the channel had been running from May of 2023, so however many months that is, what is that, like 5 months? You know,
yeah.
so it's not monetized at that point.
Of course.
If we're making sponsors, it's probably like $100 from a random sponsor per
Yeah,
month. And I'd had like a few $1,000s saved up at that point, and I was thinking, oh my god, what am I going to do? So I said, right, I'm giving myself until February of 2024
yeah,
to break even at least. And if I don't break even, then I'm going to go and get a job, and I'm going to have to just go back to what I was doing before. So I went as hard as possible for those months to upload content, to, you know, start the private community. I was creating crypto branded clothing, doing a bunch of different
yeah,
stuff as well, just to try and make things work, all in crypto. And I remember it got to February, and on February, that was the first month that I broke even. I think I'd made a slight profit on the channel, expenses, bills, all that sort of stuff. And from that point in February, I said, wow, I can make it work. And then that kind of like motivated me to go even harder. And one of the things that I say to people is, you know, a lot of people preach about work hard, do. people don't really know what work hard means
Yeah.
until it's either do or die. And I really believe I was in that do or die
Mode.
state,
Yeah.
right? To get things going. It's like I got people to take care of, I got to take care of myself.
Yeah.
You know, I really wanted to make this work. And I think for a lot of people, you know, they say about these rock bottom stories, you know, you go to the bottom and then you come up. It really is true. And I thought it was cliche, but it really is true. Like, I think if you can put your mind to it and you treat things like it's do or die, you can make anything happen, really.
Yeah.
So yeah, from 2024 was when the channel really started to pick up. Business was doing really, really well, you know, getting people into the community, channel just growing, sponsorships, all that sort of stuff as well, meeting new connections. And yeah, throughout 2024 was just one of the best years ever. Going into 2025, we can get into that in a minute, but obviously with crypto investments was a bit up and down. But still last year was really, really good as well. And yeah, I think it was a interesting journey, really.
Absolutely tremendous. No, major. Like, I mean, what you shared is really a good reminder that when you give yourself that deadline with anything in life and you just make that your single utmost priority every single day, like what you pulled off is astounding. Like it really is. It's super inspirational. And I guess by the time 2025 rolled around, you were established. You felt like a creator. You felt like this is real. This is serious. So I suppose you were just continuing to compound regardless of the market conditions. You know, you as your own independent media machine were pushing along like
Yeah.
absolutely amazing. Like it's fantastic what you did. I'm fascinated to ask around, like, you know, a lot of my conversations on the podcast with creators are often, you know, US based or originally American, let's say, you know, who may have moved elsewhere, different things like that. But like there's, I guess, sometimes a sense that being a creator in the UK is tougher, and maybe sometimes as well, arguably with crypto, because maybe the UK has less rapid adoption than the US. What's your take on that? Have you ever sensed it? Do you ever like your feeling of, do you think you'd be more successful if you were in the US, if you're from the US? Do you feel it's a pro? Is it a con? What's
I
your
think I
oh
think I probably could have got a bigger audience if I was somewhere else. If I was in the US. I mean, I look at my analytics now and you know, the largest majority is US and
yeah,
then it's UK and then it's Australia and Canada and stuff like that. But yeah, I think in the UK it is pretty tough to get that audience. Still a lot of people in the UK, they either don't know or they don't care about crypto. Like
yeah,
my group of core buddies from when I was, you know, a child, they still don't invest in
yeah.
anything, you know? And it's like, I don't really understand why they have that mindset, you know? They have a bit of a different mindset. I don't know if it's the fact of how it's kind of portrayed to us in the UK. Maybe it's not seemed. I don't know what it is in the UK. You know, even from like I got an accountant now as well, and it's like even from a tax perspective, that's so tough. You know, they take so much money. So I think I would have been able to compound a lot more in a different country probably.
Yeah.
But then the UK had its benefits as well. You know, the UK is not as bad as what people make out. Like it
No.
has its pros and its cons, but maybe because I've lived here my entire life, I'm used to it. But yeah, probably if I lived in America, maybe I could have done a little bit more, but yeah.
No, it's great, and I'm with you wholeheartedly. I think the UK has endless pros. I think it's often bashed. It's an easy target, you know, online. But like the for me, the depth of talent in the UK is insane. I suppose from a crypto and just from a maybe a finance standpoint, I always find it fascinating the maybe just the mindset difference between the US and the UK. Like sometimes there's maybe more of a spender or more of a maybe a cavalier investor mindset in the US, and maybe people are willing to take a punt on things more so than the UK. Possibly not. That's very unscientific, but it's interesting to see how that kind of feeds into building an audience, you know, when you're fully based in the UK. And obviously, though, that being said, you know, your core audience is US, and you've used your personality, and I think that's also potentially a massive pro for you as a creator, insofar as like you're unique to someone in the US. You're not the same old, you're the
Yeah.
same, which I think is amazing. So that's actually maybe a better way to frame that. Is that something that you've noticed? Like, is that, targeting the US audience? Do you find that is good to be a bit of a different voice to your, let's say, your US community members, for example?
Yeah, I definitely, in the beginning, I didn't really see anyone that looked or sounded like me making crypto videos. So in the beginning, I was a little bit like kind of apprehensive to show my face on camera, even just to talk on camera. But you realize, being different actually isn't a negative, really.
Oh,
In most cases, it's a positive.
yeah,
A lot of the UK, a lot of the US audience, oh my God, I love your British accent. And it's,
yeah, yeah. Amazing.
I don't, they hear something completely different to what I feel like I'm putting out.
Totally.
And a lot of people, they like hearing people, from different places give their
Yeah,
opinions on stuff,
yeah,
especially like you said, in the US, there's so many US creators, and a lot of them are really great. But I feel like in terms of US crypto creators, there are so many now that
yeah,
it probably does feel diluted. So yeah, to
yeah.
be a bit different is probably a positive.
100%. Yeah. And I guess for me as well, it's another reason to commend you, because I think culturally it's always tougher, let's say, from a UK standpoint to put yourself out there, because it has less, the ethos is less to kind of chase celebrity per se, whereas that might be a little bit, more the norm in the US. Even just the sheer
Yeah.
your vastness of the country leads to a bit more of like, I'm just going to go for it. So no, well done to you for going for it. So I guess, we're racing rapidly towards, well, we're in the second half of the decade. It's hard to believe, like, already, and pretty much racing through 2026 already. What excites you most about being a creator for the years ahead?
I just think being a creator now is no longer looked down upon as much as it was maybe when I was younger. Even the start of the decade, 2020, people didn't really take it seriously. Like my mates used to give me a hard time about it when I started. That's another thing as well. You'd always hear these people say, people talk down on you for being a YouTuber. I think in the UK it's a bit different because we give each other a bit of stick. That's just how it is.
Yeah, yeah,
But now I think it's become so normalized. There are so many more opportunities, even with, if you're looking at how the average creator now is kind of going mainstream in
yeah,
a lot of ways. I think there are a lot more opportunities for becoming a creator. Obviously, it takes a lot now to break in and to garner that attention. But yeah, I think it's kind of looked at as more of a serious
yeah.
career, depending on the type of content that you're
Totally.
doing, obviously. But yeah, in terms of YouTube, I think YouTube has just been like the biggest blessing in my entire life. And it's like, it's still a relatively small channel, so it makes you realize, wow, if you put in your time and your effort and you keep
Yeah,
growing, there's endless possibilities that come with being a creator. I've met so many people, worked on a lot of different side projects as well while doing YouTube, that I wouldn't have done if I wasn't a creator. People saying, "Oh, I've seen you on YouTube. I like your
yeah,
energy. I like this, like that. Do you want to come and help me with this?" And it's like gaining that experience as well, just from picking up the camera, is
amazing.
yeah, is insane. So I think there's going to be so many more opportunities, going into the end of the decade, and especially like as a crypto creator, now that crypto is being adopted a lot more mainstream, it's
Yeah,
a lot more mainstream than when I first started. And
yeah,
to think that, you were seeing these adverts on TV, or they're sponsoring, like, I'm a big UFC fan, seeing V Chain on the
yeah,
canvas sometimes. In my friends, like, it's crazy that V Chain is being shown to hundreds of millions of people. And I
totally.
think it's going to be more adopted as time goes on, and it will just be even more normalized.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, to use your two phrases spring to mind, normalize, as you said, like to crypto being normalized, but also being a creator, being a YouTuber, being massively normalized, and also just the number of relationships that you've garnered from the attention that you've generated. Like, it's sometimes forgotten when someone is either, thinking about becoming a creator or a YouTuber, or thinking about putting themselves out there, or even if they're running an accountancy agency and they want to, have a let's say a thriving LinkedIn, for example, like there's such incredible benefits to putting yourself out there, building trust automatically in a way, or duplicating your time and having that trust built, which is obviously in part the reason why you're getting these calls about the side projects, because people are seeing it, they're digesting endless minutes with you, they're racking up like 5, 6, 10 hours of essentially sitting with you, and you're doing that, duplicating yourself out, which is, absolutely fantastic. And sometimes I think these ancillary benefits get lost in the maybe the thought process of someone who is on the fence about ever putting themselves out there. That, you're a prime example of, you've built real life relationships. Thousands of people know you. I mean, if you look at your view count on your channel, you've what, 13,000 subs, but like the view count, saying like the number of eyeballs, the number of minutes consumed of your content by people is wild. And for you to be able to leverage that in the early stages already, it's really phenomenal. So I think it's such a good reminder for people that there's more to being a YouTuber than simply worried about stats, worried about view counts. Like, you've truly built genuine, authentic human relationships from it.
Yeah, I agree. And I think one thing that I always say to people is, I think a lot of YouTubers forget that the view is a real person, right? A lot of us will see 1 view to 100 views, 4,000 views, but it's people at the end of the day. And I think, creating my private community and having these one-to-one calls with people and, doing group calls, that definitely helped me kind of like stay on track and remember, these are actual people that are consuming your time, and they feel, I still feel like that about other creators that I watch, right? And it's like having a creator reply to your comment, you feel, oh my God, I can't believe that. I think sometimes people forget that that's kind of the example you are to them. So it's super important to just keep setting that example, keep turning up. The channel got a bunch of views now, way more views than what I would have thought. And even in times where social sentiment's a bit low and the view count's still low, even if the view count per video is still low now for the past few months, there are still people showing up for you every single day, that you kind of have a responsibility as a creator to stay there, really. If I subscribe to someone and then all of a sudden their channel just went mute, I would feel a little bit of a way about it. So I remember that about my own channel when I'm feeling a little bit demotivated. There are still people showing up for you every single day. And, I think as a creator, from starting from zero to actually, gaining an audience, anyone can do it if you really want to. But you've got to remember, if you are putting your face out there and you're putting your opinions out there, there are going to be people that expect a lot from you. So, it's your duty to stick around.
Yeah, for sure. Such a really good phrase, like the duty involved with it. And actually your point around the benefit of engaging with people, or rather maybe not the benefit, but the presence and the impact that you can have on others is really profound. Actually, Tyler, one of our co-founders of Fluence, just shared a screenshot overnight of another creator who started following him, and it was someone that Tyler had always looked up to. So it's amazing to see that cycle occur, where, let's say if he or you engages with someone now, then they go on to follow you for years, and that relationship truly builds. And I think, keep it top of mind, as you said, that like just viewing a stat view count, that's actually a pair of eyeballs. If you had 70 views on a video, I mean, if you had 70 people in a room listening to you, that's a huge amount of attention. Like, so I think that's a good motivation for someone as well who's on the journey, who may not be, at your stage yet, or even frankly, good reminder for those who are in the hundreds of thousands, that at the core of it, there is a person behind it. Look, really fantastic what you've shared today. I'm conscious of time, but I guess to recap what you've done over the last 5-6 years, I mean, learning and leaning in the first place from the chiropractic office, you and your buddy looking at some bogey stocks, going for it, learning and adapting, leaning into crypto, taking the plunge and going in totally to the startup was super exciting. I can imagine you had a bit of a speed bump, and you adapted to that. You gave yourself that challenge, that time pressure challenge, which for me is the big takeaway of, like, give yourself something that you got to put yourself on the hook for and really drive at it, like life or death, like you said. And then you burst out the backside of that as a true YouTuber, cemented your position as a creator, and now you're on a rapid trajectory for the years ahead with a massive number of relationships built off the back of it. So yeah, truly inspirational what you've done over the past couple of years.
Perfect. Yeah, I appreciate it. And, to end on it as well, to anyone watching, you really can, if you put your mind to it, do anything. Like you mentioned Tyler, I watched Tyler before I started my channel.
Amazing.
So it's that
Yeah.
even that sometimes you forget about little things like that, having Tyler reach out to the channel and having
Totally.
that connection with you guys now is insane, but it's down to the person to put in the time and the effort. But yeah, it's been great chatting with you guys today, Gavin.
No, absolutely super, Mark. You're a gent. Look forward to speaking to you again this time next year, and keep pumping.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I appreciate your time.